Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Human Element. Today I'm speaking with Lindsay Kaye, Vice President, Threat Intelligence at Human. Lindsay, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So let's start off. Would you tell us a bit about your journey so far?
Sure. So right now, I'm Vice President of Threat Intelligence here at Human Security, but I originally started my career actually as a software engineer. So I graduated from college with a computer engineering degree, and I thought what I want to do is be a software engineer. And like many of those best laid plans, that didn't exactly happen. So I spent a couple years doing that, but when one of my projects came to an end, I actually found another project at the company that happened to need a reverse engineer. So I didn't have any reverse engineering experience, but I did a lot of like low level programming and things like that. And then they said, I'll teach you. I was like, fantastic. This sounds awesome. I turned out to actually really love it. And I think that I'm a lot better reverse engineer than I am a software engineer. So after that, I spent a couple years honing my skills, doing a lot of embedded RE. I ultimately went on to another company to run the technical arm of the threat intelligence team, where I did a lot of different sort of malware analysis, different sort of ransomware campaign, unmasking. And then now I'm here.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's not often I hear people who enjoy the reverse part better than the forward part, but we need that. It's definitely not an area I'm any good in.
It's really fun. So I have to say that.
Yeah, I love taking things apart physically. So I mean, it makes sense that there are people who love taking the software apart. So can you tell us about a few of the life events that have shaped your leadership style?
So at my first job, one boss that I had that I thought was fantastic, he said, you know, as you start to figure out how you want to become sort of a manager or a leader, one thing to do is observe all the managers and leaders around you. So there's some things that they do well, some things that they don't do well, and try on different leadership styles. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting because you don't have to be exactly like any one person because you're your own person. So what I wanted to do is say, okay, well, I really like certain elements from some. So a lot of the kind of transparency and the honesty. And then I really liked other elements of really trying to motivate the team, make sure that you are, leading from the front, doing a lot of the things that you want them to do, not just tell them to do things. So I started to incorporate different sort of pieces and parts from a lot of the people that I worked with by kind of seeing, how it was in action. So I've tried to do a lot of that as well as continue to, learn. So I don't consider myself, a perfect manager, but you can still keep learning from the managers that you do have and watching the leaders around you, what you love about them. And one of the things that I see right now is I have a leader who says thank you all the time to staff. That is something anyone has to do. But I think it really does go a long way to say, yeah, like I really do feel appreciated when he does that. So I've been trying to do that a lot more as well.
That's cool. Is there anything you tried on that clearly, you thought was going to work, but clearly did not fit?
So, one of the things that I have found is the need for empathy. So, one of the things initially I had some leaders around me that would be, those kind of they're really firm and they execute and you have deadlines. There's no excuse for that. But, as I kind of spent more time managing, really having the understanding of like, yeah, sometimes, life happens, right? People can't meet deadlines for certain reasons and out of their control. So really trying to make sure that I incorporate empathy in my own leadership because, while it's great to meet the deadlines and make sure that your team is very performant, you can't necessarily do that and have the trust and kind of going forward in the future without incorporating at least some understanding because people have lives outside of work. This is not their entire life. So I think the most effective team management style I found, yes, sticking to the deadlines, yes, making sure we're executing properly, but also having empathy for the actual people on my team.
Sounds like a plan. I mean, in the security space, there are also times where the deadlines optimistic ideas before before we met reality. So you mentioned empathy. Are there other non-technical skills that have had significant impact on your path?
Yeah. So one of the things that I did when I was, I guess, initially a software engineer, it's just starting my reverse engineering career is like, I want to get an advanced degree because that was something that the company was like, you should get advanced degrees. And I was like, I don't want to go for like a master's in software engineering or computer engineering or anything like that. I want to get an MBA. And the reason was, so I ran a small research program within one of our, internal research areas. And one of the things that was so important is that you don't just kind of get handed money and go do something. You have to, pitch it. What is the ROI? Why should we be doing this? Why am I the right person to lead this? What is the benefit to our customers? And I saw so much importance in being able to, first of all, communicate coherently, talk to business-minded individuals as a business-minded individual, because it's like, I could talk about why this is the coolest research that anybody could ever do, but if you can't explain to somebody why they should invest and kind of what the, ROI, what they get out of it, you're never gonna win. So really kind of having a lot of that entrepreneurship, I'd like to call it, like corporate entrepreneurship, was actually really valuable, and I think that that's something that to this day, being great at public speaking, being great at communication, being great at writing, and talking to other people in the executive team, like the business people that they are, I think has been really helpful.
Nice. Is there an individual who altered the trajectory of your career?
Yeah. So I would have to say that the individual who altered the trajectory of my career was the person who kind of gave me that chance to do the reverse engineering. So I worked for an FFRDC where it was almost a consulting type arrangement where projects would hire different staff on that they had different skills that they needed to execute. And obviously, nobody wanted to necessarily spend time teaching a lot of people. So it was an opportunity where it was like, yeah, I don't necessarily have all the skills yet. I had a lot of good potential. I had more skills in the area than maybe some other people, but he actually really took a chance on me at the end. Really taught me how to do the reverse engineering. So at first I would sit next to him and sort of watch him work and ask questions there. Then it transitioned to I would reverse engineer while he sat next to me, kind of watched me ask me questions that I had to figure out good answers to. It's like I think the first time I saw a linked list in their version, we've all written code to make like lists, but then
Yeah, but looking at it from the machine code,
it's different. And then then you start to like see that idiom other places. You're like, I've got it. But that first one is hard. So I think had asked him some advice there. And then eventually it was like, you're on your own. Go off and reverse engineer. Here are some tasks I need you to do. So I'd say that that individual, by taking the chance on me, by giving me the opportunity to learn, because it's like they needed staff. I wanted to do something fun. Ultimately, gave me something that I love doing every day. Like, I think one of the things that really kind of keeps me interested is not only doing sort of the leadership and the strategery and things like that for my team, but being able to like actually do hands-on reverse engineering to help out my team is something that actually really makes me really motivated to stay in this industry and do what I do.
awesome. So have you paid that forward to anybody else? Have you brought somebody along and dragged them into an area they weren't quite expecting to be in?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the time I've had staff at my last job who are like, I want to be more technical. How do you learn to be more technical?
Oh, that's a good question.
Hard thing to answer. It's like, well, I can teach you about one piece of technical threat intelligence analysis. I can teach you about reverse engineering. Here, let me walk through how I learned and just kind of show you the tools. Like, you watch me for a little bit. So that was something where it's when a publisher, No Starch Press, actually came to me and was like, we'd like you to write a book. Do you want to write a book? I was like, oh God, what can I write the book on? It was something where I was like, hey, what if there was some sort of like introduction to reverse engineering that also combines a lot of the context of like the cyber criminal underground? Because it's like, I find that a lot of people can conceptually understand one or the other, but really having something to sort of pull them along. So, yeah, you're a reverse engineer. You want to learn more about how cyber criminals operate. Fantastic. Or you're a really kind of experienced threat intelligence analyst in sort of the criminal underworld, but you don't really have the technical skills to kind of back that up and you want to develop them. So I think combining that was really what I wanted to do to kind of help other people because I am one person and while I would love to teach everybody, there is no possible way. So when I looked at, what's out there to kind of help people along, there's some great tutorials by like Malware Unicorn and some other people online that are available and free. But like having the opportunity to say, all right, well, how do we take skills that you have and incorporate new skills that you want to learn? So I think that that was kind of the major inspiration for why I did that and why I picked that subject matter.
Nice. So let's turn it around and screw something up. What's the most valuable lesson you've learned from a security incident or an operational failure?
So I have to say that one of the things is to like never make some sort of assumption. So one of the things that when you get like a new piece of malware, right? You're like, "Oh my god, I want to find the answer right now and it must be this." But really kind of taking the time to say, "All right, let's ignore what could be or what would be fun or sexy or cool or something like that and try and focus on like what we're actually seeing." So kind of taking the time, being focused. So sometimes you see other people getting really excited about things like, oh my God, this must be. So it's like, well, let's ask the question like, are we sure? What makes us sure? And then sometimes you like are able to either lead yourself or other people into the, oh, well, maybe that wasn't the case. Let me just take another look. So I think making sure that you take the time, obviously we all want things to be super exciting. Sometimes they aren't, but really making sure that if you're going to go to, let's say, the CEO or the CISO and tell them what you found, just making sure it's correct.
So not everything you come across is going to be the next Stuxnet.
Unfortunately, no. Sometimes we're like, ah, yet another piece of, you know, leaked Babbock source code recompiled into something else. You're like, oh man, I've seen that before. That's not exciting. But, we can all hope.
We can hope. All right. So what's the most rewarding aspect of your job?
So I would have to say the most rewarding aspect of my job is actually being able to help and work alongside my team. So we look at mostly a lot of different advertising fraud and bot threats. So ad fraud, unsurprisingly, like any other cyber criminal campaign, is getting more sophisticated. So what this means is many of the kind of simple, just Android apps of yesteryear aren't it anymore. So you often have things like native code or other pieces of backdoor code. And my team is so amazing at a lot of the Android stuff, and they just can rip that apart faster than I can. But when they have things that are, let's say, Windows binaries or some of that native code or like heavily obfuscated versions of those, I'm like, me, pick me. And giving me the chance to sort of like help out, make an impact, not just tell people what to do, but actually be a contributing member of the team, I think is one of the most motivating pieces of this. And it really keeps me excited to not just talk about our work, right? But actually having contributed to it and feeling like I am actually making an impact on actually rooting out fraud, right? So I'm not just talking about the rooting out of fraud. I am making sure that, yes, we are demonetizing and disrupting these criminals.
Bad days for bad people. Sounds like a good plan. How has your approach to building trust within your team evolved over time?
So one thing that I've always tried to do is be consistent with my words and actions. So one of the biggest things on my team is that I, expect people to tell me the honest truth about things. So like if you couldn't get to something, just tell me, right? It's going to be something where it's like, yep, I understand life happens, things happen. Oh my God, this sudden emergency thing came up that we all had to kind of shift to. I won't be frustrated. I'll help you kind of figure out like, well, what can we reprioritize? What can we do? How can we get there? But that is something that I've always tried to kind of keep at the core of what I do. So how it's changed over time, right? It's something where it's, initially when I was like, I'm going to be firm on the deadlines and things like that. And, I recognize now that there's a little bit of room for less transparency on some things and more transparency on other things, right? Like nobody wants to hear, well, whoever above you was really mad that you didn't meet that deadline versus like, yeah, like, okay, well, let me help you solve it. Let's figure out how we solve it together. Cause like nobody needs to know some of those things. It's like ultimately we all just need to succeed together. So I will tell you how I would fix it, but it may not be how you would. So I think I've also gotten a lot better at kind of not telling people exactly like initially like, okay, well, here's how I would repair this thing. And saying, well, what do you think? How would you fix it? Because oftentimes people have better ideas than I would, and people are different than me. So we all approach things in a different way.
What is your strategy for balancing the technical expertise with the leadership required to be a good leader?
So I think that in order to be a good leader, at least on my current team and the teams that I've led in the past, I think you need to have the technical expertise. So to become authentic, right? Because being able to not only present a compelling strategy or show people how, you know, we can do this and this is very motivating and great. I think that at least I need to show that I understand how these things work. I can offer some good feedback. I can bounce ideas. And I think that that's something that they value, right? Having a technical leader in addition to somebody who can, you know, deal with the upper management and talk about the strategy, talk about, here's our goals and things that we need to meet, I think is really valuable. And I think it shows that I do care to kind of keep bettering my own self. And I'm not just telling people what to do, I'm actually doing it myself. So, I'm out there writing the blogs, I'm out there doing the technical research. It's like, oh, okay, well, if she can do it, maybe I can do it. Like maybe I was a little worried about that, but maybe I should give it a chance.
Also means you understand how long things take or
And I will never overpromise somebody something without talking to a staff member. It's like sometimes, you get, "Hey, can you guys finish this by the end of the day?" So it's like, "Oh, a lot of my team's already signed off because it's 9 o'clock at night for them. But let me talk to them about tomorrow and see kind of where they are and then get back to you. It's not like, yeah, sure, we'll get this done by tonight. It's like, well, people would like to sleep and eat dinner and things like that. So trying to make sure that people are treated like people. Obviously, there are all those different situations where we have to like drop everything and it's an emergency and like we're all working. But the vast majority of the time, like, okay, it can wait a couple days.
What's your time zone distribution like?
So we have a couple in the US on the East Coast, and then we have Tel Aviv, India, either Romania or the UK, depending, and Portugal. So pretty distributed.
Yeah, you definitely have to be doing some math as you're having those conversations about, yeah, no, that can't be till tomorrow.
Like one meeting time that actually works and it's inconvenient for a lot of people, but it's like, "Thank you guys, and I'm sorry." So we make it work.
What is your definition of success for your team?
So I kind of have different components of what success looks like. So obviously we understand that this is a business and we have to, make the business go. But ultimately there's a couple different areas that we have focused on. So it's like making our products better. So I think one thing that's been really motivating for not only myself, but people on the team is like seeing our products get better and having to say like, hey, we did that. We threat modeled that feature. And man, it is so much better than it could have been without us. I think also doing kind of that bespoke research, it's like, it's really fun for us and we really enjoy it. And like, yeah, who doesn't want to kind of chase the bad guys and figure out the campaigns and who's behind everything? But it's something where it's when we talk to our marketing and sales people, it's like, hey, they get so excited about it because they're like, wow, this is cool and fun and sexy and we can talk about it. And it's kind of fun for us. So our company makes comic books to talk about the campaign. Nobody's going to read like a 40-page technical report. They're just not. People can read a 6-page comic book, like anybody can. So I think it's really kind of fun to see you on a comic book because you're like, man, we did this. So I think that making sure that they get to do work that they enjoy, that benefits the company, and then helping them understand how the things that they do actually benefit the company is really important. So I had a coworker in one of my past jobs who said, like nobody wants to build VMs every single day for weeks. They don't still it's like really not exciting, but help them understand why that VM is so critical to the project and like how it's really sort of, if we do this, we're able to test things in this way and then we make sure things succeed. So it's like, yeah, like maybe this isn't super fun and sexy, but here is how the impact of this really is.
Do you find, kind of having an impact on society helps there?
I think really seeing so recently we disrupted, or I believe it was probably about 6 months ago, a campaign Bad Box 2.0. So there was an ad fraud component to it, as well as kind of the core crux of it was these low cost Android based devices that were infected with malware that made the devices do different types of fraud. And we saw over 1 million devices in our partnership with Google and the Shadow server, as well as law enforcement, really seeing not only just our work kind of, yeah, we can disrupt the ad fraud component by ourselves. Human can do a great job at that. But seeing things like an FBI PSA come out, like Google filed a lawsuit against these 10 unnamed individuals associated. And we're like, wow, okay, this is real world impact. People are actually seeing this. Like, if it makes somebody think about, like, maybe I don't want to buy this low cost device that promises me free football for life. So really helping to monetize the actors that way. I think really seeing an amazing real world impact is so motivating because you're not just doing something that you find enjoyable, that your company enjoys, which is a great motivator, but seeing actual companies and law enforcement, everybody else talking about, wow, this impact is actually really motivating and amazing.
Absolutely. Is there a daily routine you found to be especially helpful?
So one of the things I try to do is sort of like time box my day, which is actually really easy having most of my team in Europe or the Middle East, because then I can do all the meetings in the morning. So it's like one-on-ones, any sort of other meetings that I have to go to, kind of try to keep them in the morning so that I can do actual technical work in the afternoon, technical work or other kind of things that I need to do. And I found that it makes it a lot easier than sort of like the constant context switching. Because like while it's feasible, you don't really want to have to feel like you're like in a rush constantly. So kind of mornings for one-on-ones, catching up on all the Slack messages and emails that I got during the evening for my time, then focusing on a lot of the stuff that really takes concentration. So, like, if I have to do any sort of complex reverse engineering, that's happening in the afternoon.
Definitely need the uninterrupted blocks of time.
Morning meetings, afternoon fun time.
I understand. So if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, unfocused, how do you get back on track?
So, one of the things that I am very good at is like, "Oh my god, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and all these other things are going to happen, oh my god." And I just have to pull myself back and say, "Okay, well, what is the most important thing for me to get done?" If it's there is suddenly a new threat advisory out and we need to understand it, does it impact our clients? Does it impact us? Is it something we should be having a voice out there on? Okay, that's urgent and necessary. There are other things where it's, yeah, I know I have to kind of get my piece of this report done by tomorrow. If I let somebody know that maybe it's going to be slipping a couple hours, I think that that's really reasonable. But really trying to understand in my mind, like, what is the top priority? What do I need to focus on now? Really helps me kind of pull back because, I am fantastic at, oh my God, all these things, we have to do them and they have to be done now. But I find that most people are pretty understanding if you're pretty open about, hey, this other thing came up. I can turn this in by day X or time X. And really sticking to it, I think, is something that's super important because saying, hey, I can get it done by today or tomorrow, and then not delivering, I found is not something that I ever want to do. So it's if I tell you I'm going to turn it in by 4 p.m. tomorrow, I'm either meeting or beating that deadline.
So obviously reverse engineering is a very, very technical pursuit. How do you keep up with the developments in the space? How do you find time and how do you manage that process of keeping up with everything that's changing in the sector?
So I found at least a lot of the ad fraud campaigns that we've been looking at, especially bad box, really sort of force you to, right? So I know we've been talking about AI, everything AI, but sometimes you feel like, man, this obfuscation toolkit is not AI generated, but it's really challenging. Is it a new one? Man, what if they start using AI to start doing some of these things? But one of the things that we actually see today is like people, like I said, threat actors are getting more sophisticated. So it's, oh, wow, I really haven't seen that, encryption algorithm used on code for a very long time. Wow, interesting. Okay, let me learn about that. Let me understand how that works. What are the new techniques that we see people focused on? So obviously, I'd like to keep up with every sort of new reverse engineering thing out there, but I think that that would be very stressful and overwhelming. So what I tried to do is focus on, well, what are the things that I actually see and, either have to figure out how they work for my team or we're kind of hosed. And what are the things that are most relevant to my job today? So what are the things that by understanding them, I would either benefit myself or my current company by understanding. So I try to focus there. There are obviously a lot of things that keep coming up. So I think if you're familiar with the tiny T encryption algorithm, I cannot remember the last time that I've seen this because it's usually like RC4, things like that you see in malware. I was like, man, what is this? Oh, that magic number is tiny T. And I'm like, and it's a little bit wrong too. So like, how do I figure out how to take this apart? So it's like, yeah, okay, I learned something that was certainly exciting. And it's like how to run like Android native code libraries without the APK portion of it. Like, yeah, I learned something. My company benefited and my team was really impressed at the end of the day. So trying to focus there as I sort of like seek to better myself and my skills on, okay, well, what do I need to do?
I've always found with the poorly implemented encryption, it's always a question of did they change that because they're clever, or did they change that because they didn't understand what they were doing?
And then it's like, ooh, and did it backfire on them too? So it's always interesting.
Is there one thing that you do as a leader that you'd like to see more leaders doing?
So when I look at a lot of other leaders out there, I think, like I said, one of the things that I value about some of the other leaders that I've been able to take pieces from, I think this thank you, right? So the one leader that I learned that from, I'd love to see other leaders say thank you to their staff, to each other. I think ultimately we are all busy. Everybody is working hard. There's so much going on, especially right now. So it's, yeah, just a simple thank you, I think is so powerful. And while we can't give out awards and bonuses and everything all the time, I think a simple thank you really costs nothing. And it's something we can.
Sounds like a good one. So, how do you define an effective team culture and how do you build one?
So I think an effective team culture is where the team is productive and they want to be there and they want to work hard. So not everything we do is glamorous all the time. So trying to help the team understand, well, okay, why is this something that benefits us? And trying to make it something that is somewhat enjoyable. So I talked a little bit before about making this a place that people want to work. So making sure that people are doing things that they find interesting. They understand the impact of their work. I think that those are kind of some of the most powerful pieces. So when we have things that it's like, well, nobody really wants to work on this particular thing, it's like, well, I'll do it. And then making sure that they see me doing it, and it's yeah, maybe it's not the most glamorous or fun thing that I could be doing, but yeah, I did it. And then sometimes other people will go, well, maybe I could do one too. Oh, okay, I'd like to do one too. Because it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not that bad. So we're all kind of doing it together at the end of the day. And I think really kind of helping see everybody sort of see that we are a team, we are in this together. Yeah, these aren't the most fun things that we could be doing, but ultimately we get to go kind of back to the fun stuff and we're all doing it. So might as well just kind of get it done and then move on. And I think having the team be somewhere where everybody feels like they can trust me, I will do exactly what I am going to say I'm going to do is also really important.
Do you have any tools you use to just build team cohesion and games you play or things like that?
So not so much games, but one of the things I try to do is have one-on-ones with my team is very small. So I have one-on-ones with pretty much everybody on my team. So it's not just, oh, the leader of our team, very self-important. I can only, focus on whatever. But, trying to talk to them like people. So I've discovered that in every job that I've ever had, you can't approach everybody kind of the same way. So some people wanna talk about the weekend for a couple minutes before, some people wanna jump straight into business, some people wanna show you something immediately. So trying to figure out who exactly is on your team and how you interact with them, at least from my perspective. Between the team members, it's like I encourage them to have one-on-ones with each other, right? Like, there's no reason that a one-on-one should just be between you and your boss. Like, you can have them with your coworkers, trying to shuffle around some of the different work streams. Because it's like, if somebody has to just reverse engineer, let's say, an app every single day, all day, and you don't necessarily wanna keep doing that. Well, if there's an opportunity for them to learn a new skill if they want it, yeah, let's see if we can kind of get them, first of all, the opportunity to learn that, and then maybe work with somebody on the team that they haven't as much. So trying to have people build relationships with each other, because it's not just a set of disparate individuals, which, as you can imagine, having people distributed so widely, almost none of us really work in an office. None of us work in an office together, so we don't see each other regularly. So as you can imagine, it would be super easy for people to be very disconnected, but making sure that people are collaborating together and working on different projects with different people has helped, I think, to make it a more cohesive team, even though we're all remote.
Excellent. What is your approach to difficult decisions?
So I recognize that difficult decisions do have to get made. And one of the things that I like to do is not just kind of, yes, the answer is A, right? Trying to think of like, okay, well, what are the benefits of all of my different options? First of all, what are my different options? So, is there any way that maybe it doesn't have to be so black and white if I choose A or choose B? So, if I have to pick who's getting a promotion, okay, well, is there any way to say, well, we give a promotion here and then 6 months from now, like, is there any sort of other incentive or things like that that you can make? Sometimes you have to decide. I think it's a lot easier to decide, well, should we pursue research A or B? Then I sit there, I talk to the team and say, okay, well, what is the ROI? What is the benefit of doing one versus the other? Why should we do A or B? And I think that it's trying to understand what are the pros and cons of each of them. Obviously, you might have been in an experience where you yourself have seen like, oh, I feel a certain way about picking a certain option, but does that necessarily mean it's right? Maybe, maybe not. So trying to understand what are the ramifications. And obviously, I have never been one to say, oh, I make every decision perfectly, but you try and do your best.
What advice do you give to people in the field most often?
So I think most people, when they come to me and ask for advice, it's how do I get more technical? How do I learn to do malware analysis and reverse engineering? So one of the things I'll do is point them towards a bunch of the different resources that I like, different books, different tools. But I think that's not everything. So trying to encourage people to not be discouraged by failure. So something where it's you may not get it the first time, you may not get it the 100th time, but keep trying. So you are looking at somebody who spent 12 years doing this. So I have tried many, many times. I failed many, many times, but ultimately I've learned from those failures.
Yeah, we used to talk a lot in the networking space that you haven't necessarily learned something until you've spent a few hours dragging your face over the keyboard trying to make it work. It's like if somebody gives you the answer, it's too easy. You don't remember it.
And I think by failing at certain things, it's like, well, I'll never forget that one after I spent 6 hours staring at it, and it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your approach to mentoring the next generation?
So the next generation of cybersecurity people, it's a lot of the core skills that we have learned ourselves. So like I think one of the things that I talk to them about is like if you're a strong programmer, that's super important because if you're writing the code one way, you have a little bit easier time is understanding how it goes the other way. So when I talk to people about, build up a lot of those skills, if you can take the opportunity to do any sort of like system administration type things to really kind of understand how a lot of these things work under the hood to understand because everybody's kind of focused on let's let's kind of go and do cybersecurity degrees and like all this stuff because it's like I remember back when I was in college, like that really wasn't as much of a thing. So we really focused a lot more on some of those core skills and trying to tell people that you don't need to be in a fancy cybersecurity program. Like I wasn't, most of my peers never were. So it's something where it's if you learn a lot of core skills, you'll be okay and you'll succeed. Take opportunities to learn something new. Like maybe it's not necessarily your dream career yet, but make sure it's something where you can start to learn something from it to get there.
With sysadmin, there's an interesting angle there that I've observed, which is the folks coming out of the cybersecurity programs very often show up and want to wrap everything in Kevlar and air gap everything. It's like, no, we actually need to get work done over here.
It's like, what's the balance between security and then actually getting stuff done? Because one's not realistic.
Yeah. Are there any resources that you frequently recommend to people? Books, podcasts, whatever.
So I really like Malware Unicorns training. I think it is still up. Michael Sikorsky's book. It has the alien on the cover. It's a no starch press book. I have that. I really enjoyed that one, as well as Hacking the Art of Exploitation. That was really fun. So try to kind of learn some of these things. Oh, do you have that one? Yes, real people like these books. I think they teach you a lot of really kind of core interesting pieces of what cybersecurity is. Like maybe you're not going to do exploit development, maybe you're not going to do reverse engineering, but having at least the technical understanding is super important. One of the things that a lot of people are like, reverse engineering, where do I find samples? I was like, well, unless you have kind of like a malware handling plan in mind, one of the things that I think is really easy is if you write some code or find some code compile it, and then stick it in Ghidra. I like Ghidra. It's free, and I'm much better with it than IDA. So it's like, okay, well, then you start to understand what does a for loop look like? What does that damn linked list look like? What are some other things? How do structures look? But you also see the code, so you can kind of compare and contrast. I think that those are kind of the things where I tell people, why don't you start there? See how that goes.
So, on your way up the ladder, what was the hardest transition you faced?
So I think trying to transition from somebody who always just did stuff, just somebody who had to lead the doing of stuff. In that, as I mentioned before, it's like I was like, "Oh, well, I would do it this way, and this would take me about an hour, and this would take me 3 days." But really recognizing and understanding, well, I am not doing this task anymore. This other person is doing this task. So I need to, communicate what it is, what does success look like, and then almost trust them to tell me how long they think it's gonna take, tell me how long or how they expect to do it. So it's not just I am estimating how an army of exact clones of Lindsay would do this. I'm trying to work with different variables. Somebody is, okay, well, they have 3 other tasks on their plate, so they can only devote 25% time to this. Okay, well, what does that mean for our deadline? Maybe they didn't approach it the way that I did, but man, maybe their solution was better, or at least it works and it meets the test cases and everything like that. So I think trying to kind of let go of some of the control and let people execute, trust them to execute, have a team that you can trust and that you can rely on and you really get great results from, and letting them go off and do.
What are the key factors you look for when kind of calibrating how much you trust your team or how much you trust your team members?
I think a lot of it is seeing how they handle different tasks. So if I ask them to do something by a certain date and they do it, fantastic. But I think it's even more important to see kind of how they handle things when they don't meet the deadline. So did they tell me Did they tell me? First of all, is it something where it's like, "Okay, yeah, sorry, I just couldn't get to it. Here's what happened. Here is how we wanted to fix it." Or is it something where it's like, "Oh, that is definitely not true." So I think trust I've had managers in the past describe trust as a bucket, kind of like a bucket of water.
Could be full, it could be empty.
Yeah, I'm like, if your trust bucket is full and you lose a little, well, that's okay. But if you've lost substantially so many different times, then your bucket is very empty, and that's maybe something that's cause for concern, but generally, most people that I've worked with have a very full trust bucket, and, like, everybody makes mistakes, things happen. So trying to consider it as, the whole picture, not, "Well, this person didn't meet one deadline," or, "This person didn't do this thing." My trust for them is gone. Trying to see it as the bucket, I think, is a really helpful metaphor.
That's a nice one. Is there a key piece of advice you received along the way?
I think the most key piece of advice was how to be a good leader, right? Try the different leadership styles on. If something's not working, try something else. So I think recognizing that I am not just set in my ways as a leader and I have to be kind of this person for the rest of my life, but being able to evolve and change is totally normal, right? Nobody is stuck in a certain leadership style and you can improve.
Absolutely. Do you see any trends developing in the space that are going to require we adjust and evaluate how we lead our teams?
So I think moving to a company now versus my old company that is now completely remote, not just because people were in an office and then had to work from home due to pandemic for a while. I think it's as leaders being okay with and skilled at managing a remote team. So I talked about a couple of the things that I have found very successful because I think this is ultimately going to be the future, especially in cybersecurity, because in order to kind of think the best talent, the most enthusiastic talent, you really can't say they all must be in an office in Washington, D.C. or New York City. So it's like really being able to have a remote team that you're skilled at managing and you kind of understand how to do that well, I think is something that as leaders, we're going to have to get better at in the future.
I agree. Are there any tips or tricks you use when managing remote folks?
So I think trying to make sure that they aren't just off on an island alone. So we try to have one offsite a year because getting everybody together can be a little bit complicated. But again, making sure that it's not just hub and spoke where it's like they only ever talk to me, that they are working with each other, working with people in other groups. So at least they have sort of that connection there. Finding opportunities, it's like, okay, if we're going to a conference, like, yeah, let's see if we can kind of get other people to that conference, give them the face to face wherever possible, but making sure that their everyday is also pleasant and filled with interaction because nobody's just sitting behind a computer with, I mean, not everybody loves meetings, right? Let's be honest, but at least, meet for a virtual coffee and just talk about something or at least work together with someone else, I think has been something that has really been helpful.
Nice. So when you're hiring, what are the critical qualities you're looking for, and how do you screen for them?
So I think other than technical skills, something that has been really important is ability to communicate. So written and oral communication. I think oral is a lot easier because we can kind of talk like this. But I think something that I want to see is somebody being excited about something. So oftentimes the first thing I'll ask somebody to do is, "Hey, tell me about a project that you worked on that you were really passionate about." And you can kind of dig into several different pieces there. So first of all, the technical. So you can keep asking more technically deep questions and sort of like see if they talk about it. But you can really kind of tell the enthusiasm that people have for certain things when they really worked on that project. They tried, they failed, they did something cool. They really want to talk about it. So really kind of getting a sense for what motivates them, where their technical skills are, and then how they communicate them to me. Because I'm not an expert in every form of every technology thing in cybersecurity at all. But if you can explain to me this project that might be like, let's say it's a keyboard device driver, like, sure, I know some things, but you know way more about your project. Explain it to me in a way that I can understand. I think that tells you a lot.
Definitely. I've found the excitement is kind of my key indicator in terms of how much of this came from AI.
Yeah, and that's something that, a couple of years ago we weren't concerned about. I am interviewing somebody that's looking at ChatGPT or looking at some sort of AI tool, but now it's becoming more prevalent. So it's really trying to understand like, okay, this project that you worked on, this specific thing, and you're really excited about it, I think, like you said, is like a really great barometer.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for today. Before we wrap it up, if people want to follow along with your work, where's the best place for them to go?
So you can check me out on LinkedIn. I think that that's probably a place where I post the most stuff that I'm working on, both personally and professionally. You may check out my website, lindsaymkaye.com. And then I guess keep an eye out for my upcoming book with No Starch Press, Dissecting the Dark Web.
Awesome. Lindsay, thank you. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.